shirt, a polished band, and a German watch, but my identity, which is going to be decided by the educational structure I've been a part of, has to stay Indian, ladies and gentlemen. And another point which needs to be added is mental health needs to become an important part of our curriculum. And her mom said that her family couldn't afford to send her and her brothers to school, so they chose the boys. The reason she would eventually get married and it would be a waste of money. I was completely blown and it shook me to my core. Eventually, I decided to cover the cost of education so that she could continue to learn, because education is a basic human right and a huge necessity, especially today. From that point on, I was
story of a woman who, in pursuit of her dreams and aspirations, made other people realize that sometimes problems are not too big. We are too small because we cannot handle them. It's the story of a woman who, in time, realized that the real happiness does not lie in money, power, success, fame. It lies within. Real happiness lies in gratitude. So, friends, this is my story, the story of gratitude. They call it adversity, I call it opportunity. They call it weakness, I call it strength. They call me disabled, I call myself specially abled. They all can see my disability, but I stand before you all to show my ability.
No matter how hard you try to avoid being cringe, you will look back on your life and cringe retrospectively. And this is going to be hard for you to hear, but in your life, you will inevitably misspeak, trust the wrong people, underreact, overreact, hurt the people who did deserve it, overthink, not think at all, self-sabotage, create a reality where only your experiences exist, ruin perfectly good moments for yourself and others, deny any wrongdoing, not try to make it right, feel very guilty, let the wind eat at you, hit rock bottom, finally address the pain of cost, rinse and repeat.
I wanted to cover all my bases. And finally, I wrote a letter to the soap manufacturer. Weeks went by, and to my surprise, I received letters of encouragement from Hillary Clinton, from Linda Harvey, and from Gloria Allred. It was amazing. The Kids News show, they sent a camera crew back to my home to cover the story. And it was roughly a month later when the soap manufacturer, Procter & Gamble, changed the commercial from women all over America are fighting greasy pots and pans to people all over America.
I, a woman. Now here my speech begins. Well, children, where there is so much racket, there must be something out of kilter. I think that twixt the Negroes of South and women of North, all talking about rights. But the white man will need a fix pretty soon. But what's all this here talking about? That man over there, he says that women needs to be held into carriages and lifted over ditches and to have the best place everywhere. Nobody ever helped me into carriages or over mud puddles or gives me any best place. And ain't I a woman? Look at me. Look at my arms. I have plowed and planted and gathered into barns, and no men could help me. And ain't I a woman? If I could walk as much and eat as much as a man, and when I could get it, I could bear the lash as well. And ain't I a woman? I have borne 30 children and seen most of all sold to slavery. And when I cried out with my mother's grief, none but Jesus heard me. And ain't I a woman? Then they talk about this thing in the head. What is it they call? Intellect. That's it, honey, intellect. What's that got to do with women's right or Negro's right? If my cup won't hold which it filled, and yours hold a quart, wouldn't you be mean not to let me have my little half measure full? Then that little man in black said, you should people who are born, who earn and who die. One thing that I have learned with my experience, particularly from foundation, is the more you share, the richer you are. The more you give, the richer you are. The more compassion you have for people, more happy you are. And I'm not saying that I'm doing this work because other people are benefited. I'm doing this work because I'm benefited. I'm tremendously benefited to know what life is and how beautiful it is. How many people are not fortunate. How fortunate we are that God has given us normal, proper human life. I'm very fortunate to have got great education from a great institute.
By the time the British left, it was down to 4%. Why? Simply because India had been governed for the benefit of Britain. Britain's rise for 200 years was financed by depredations in India. In fact, Britain's industrial revolution was actually premised upon the deindustrialization of India. Colonialists like Robert Clive brought the rotten boroughs in England on the proceeds of their loot in India, while taking the Hindi word loot into their dictionary as well as their habits. The British had the gall to call him the Clive of India, as if he belonged to the country. But all he really did was to make sure that much of the country belonged to him. By the end of the 19th century, the fact is that India was already Britain's biggest cash cow, the world's biggest purchaser of British goods and exports, and the source for highly paid employment of British civil servants. We literally paid for our own oppression.